a gigantic industry has been built on a total non-event. And when I say a total non-event, I mean a total non-event. It wasn't as if, you know, I tickled my daughter or something and much has been exaggerated. I'm saying nothing at all. I mean,
I was taken to a small attic crawl space in my mother's country house in Connecticut by my father. He instructed me to lay down on my stomach and play with my brother's toy train that was set up. And he sat behind me.
Woody Allen vanished from Hollywood not because he chose to, but because the truth finally caught up with him.
As I played with the toy train, I was, as a 7-year-old, I would have said he touched my private parts.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
For 30 years, Hollywood protected its beloved genius until they couldn't anymore.
She walks around the house holding her. She sleeps with me. She's scared of you. And you hurt her.
This is how America's most celebrated filmmaker became its most notorious exile. By 1991, Woody Allen appeared to have everything a filmmaker could want. His relationship with actress Mia Farrow had produced some of his most acclaimed work over their 12-year partnership. She had starred in 13 of his films, bringing a delicate vulnerability to roles that seemed written specifically for her. Together, they had created a blended family that included adopted children, Moses and Dylan, plus their biological son Satchel, later known as Ronan Farrow. To the outside world, they represented a sophisticated New York intellectual partnership. Allen, the neurotic genius behind films like Annie Hall and Manhattan, paired with Farrow, the ethereal actress who had captivated audiences in Rosemary's Baby. They maintained separate apartments across Central Park, an arrangement that seemed charmingly bohemian to their admirers. But behind this carefully constructed image, troubling patterns were already emerging that would eventually destroy everything. Allen's behavior towards 7-year-old Dylan had become increasingly concerning to those who witnessed it. Family friends later recalled how he would follow the little girl around, insisting on physical contact even when she tried to pull away. He would climb into her bed at night, force her to suck his thumb, and demand attention that seemed inappropriate for a father-daughter relationship.
He would follow me around. He was always touching me, cuddling me, and if I ever said, you know, like, I want to go off by myself, he wouldn't let me.
The warning signs were so obvious that Allen was required to enter therapy specifically focused on his inappropriate conduct with children. Even his own therapist had identified problematic behavior patterns that needed immediate intervention. Yet somehow, the broader Hollywood community remained oblivious to what was happening in their private family life.
He often asked me to get into bed with him when he had only his underwear on, and sometimes when only I had my underwear on.
Meanwhile, Allen had begun developing what he would later describe as a friendship with Soon-Yi Previn, Mia's 21-year-old adopted daughter from her previous marriage to composer Andre Previn. Soon-Yi had been part of the Farrow family since she was 7 years old, adopted from a Korean orphanage in 1977. She had grown up knowing Allen as her mother's boyfriend and a father figure to her younger siblings. What began as occasional basketball games together would soon evolve into something far more sinister. According to court testimony, Allen's sexual relationship with Soon-Yi began in December 1991, just days after he had legally adopted Dylan and Moses. The timing was not coincidental. Allen was simultaneously pursuing inappropriate relationships with two vulnerable young women in the same household. The toxic family dynamics that Allen was creating would reach their breaking point in early 1992, setting in motion a chain of events that would expose decades of manipulation, abuse, and cover-ups at the highest levels of the entertainment industry. On August 4th, 1992, during a custody visit to Mia's Connecticut country home, Allen committed the act that would finally force the truth into the open. What happened in that attic would haunt Dylan Farrow for the rest of her life, while Allen would spend the next 3 decades trying to discredit her account and escape the consequences of his actions. August 4th, 1992 started like any other custody visit. Alan drove up to Mia Farrow's Connecticut country home to spend time with the children. The household was busy with various family members and friends coming and going throughout the day. Nobody suspected that by evening, their family would be destroyed forever.
I was taken to a small attic crawl space in my mother's country house in Connecticut by my father. He instructed me to lay down on my stomach and play with my brother's toy train that was set up. And he sat behind me.
What 7-year-old Dylan described to her mother that evening would trigger investigations by multiple agencies and destroy any remaining illusion that Alan was simply an eccentric but harmless filmmaker. The details were specific, disturbing, and consistent with patterns of behavior that family friends had been noticing for months. When Dylan first told her mother what had happened, Mia's immediate reaction was to take her daughter to a pediatrician. But during that first medical examination, Dylan was too embarrassed to repeat the details. It was only after Mia explained that it was important to tell the truth that Dylan found the courage to describe the doctor. The pediatrician was legally obligated to report the allegation to authorities, setting in motion investigations by Connecticut State Police, New York State Child Welfare, and the Child SA Clinic at Yale New Haven Hospital. For Alan, who had spent decades carefully managing his public image, the loss of control must have been terrifying. His response was swift and calculated. Rather than cooperating quietly with the investigation, Alan immediately went on the offensive. He filed for sole custody of all 3 children and began a media campaign designed to discredit both Dylan and Mia. The audacity of his strategy was breathtaking. Here was a man and his daughter, and his response was to claim that he should have exclusive custody of that same child. It was a move that revealed either complete delusion or the calculating mind of a master manipulator who believed he could control the narrative.
Look, be logical about this. I'm 57. Isn't it illogical that I'm going to, at the height of a very bitter, acrimonious custody fight, drive up to Connecticut where nobody likes me in the house. I'm with a house full of enemies.
Alan's logic was revealing in its narcissism. He couldn't conceive that his behavior might be driven by compulsion rather than rational decision-making. To him, it was something you might pick this moment to do, as if it were a calculated career move rather than the culmination of an escalating pattern of inappropriate behavior. The taped phone call between Alan and Mia, secretly recorded during this period, captured the raw anguish of a mother confronting her daughter's abuse.
To Dylan? What you done to Dylan? Dylan's a baby. How could you do that to her?
The pain in Mia's voice was unmistakable as she described how the assault had affected her daughter.
You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have hurt me like that.
While Alan continued to deny everything, the evidence was mounting. Dylan's account was detailed, consistent, and exhibited none of the hesitation or confusion that might indicate coaching. The child's behavioral changes after the alleged assault were documented by multiple witnesses. But Alan had one more explosive revelation that would change the public conversation entirely. His relationship with Soon-Yi Previn was about to become front-page news. Just as the investigation into Dylan's allegations was beginning, Alan made a decision that would define his public image forever. On August 17, 1992, he released a statement confirming his romantic relationship with Soon-Yi Previn, Mia's 21-year-old adopted daughter. "Regarding my love for Soon-Yi, it's real and happily all true," Alan declared. "She's a lovely, intelligent, sensitive woman who has and continues to turn around my life in a wonderfully positive way." The timing was no coincidence. By going public with the Soon-Yi relationship just weeks after Dylan's allegations, Alan was creating a narrative that would dominate headlines and shift public attention away from the molestation charges. Instead of focusing on whether he had say-sayed a 7-year-old, the media became obsessed with the soap opera elements of his affair with his partner's daughter. This calculated media strategy revealed Alan's sophisticated understanding of how to manipulate public opinion. He knew that audiences would be more fascinated by a scandalous May-December romance than by the horrific details of child SA. The Soon Yi story had all the elements of a tabloid sensation: forbidden love, family betrayal, and celebrity drama. What the public didn't know was how long Soon Yi for this relationship. Court proceedings would later establish that their relationship had begun in December 1991, but evidence suggests grooming had started much earlier. Alan had first met Soon Yi when she was just 8 years old and he was in his 40s. Over the years, he had positioned himself as a mentor figure, advising her on everything from her appearance to her career aspirations. When she expressed interest in modeling during her senior year of high school, Alan arranged for professional photographs to be taken, photos that would later take on a more sinister meaning. The power dynamics involved were staggering. Soon Yi was not just significantly younger than Alan, she was financially dependent on the family structure he was systematically destroying. She had grown up in an orphanage before being adopted by Mia and Andre Prevan, making her particularly vulnerable to manipulation by adult authority figures.
Several weeks before it happened, Mia called me on the phone and said, in the course of an argumentative phone call, she said, "I have something very nasty planned for you." And I said, "What are you going to do, shoot me?"
When did this happen?
This happened several weeks or a month before the allegations.
Alan's version of events painted Mia as a vengeful woman who had orchestrated false allegations in response to his affair with Soon Yi. According to his account, she had revenge and then systematically coached Dylan to make false accusations.
Many occasions, over the phone and in person, Mia had said to me, "You took my daughter, and I'm going to take yours."
But this narrative contained a crucial flaw that Alan never adequately addressed. The timeline didn't support his claims. Mia had discovered the Soon Yi affair in January 1992, when she found nude photographs of her daughter in Alan's apartment. Dylan's allegations weren't made until August 1992, 7 months later. If Mia had been planning false allegations as revenge, why wait so long? The photographs themselves told a disturbing story. According to Mia, they were really disturbing. Alan claimed he had taken them just 2 weeks before Mia found them, which would place their creation in early January 1992. Yet he also insisted that his sexual relationship with Soon Yi had only begun in December 1991. The rapid progression from initiation of relationship to pornography suggested a level of predatory behavior that Alan was desperately trying to minimize.
The first time, the first days or something, I felt this is completely justifiable. I have turned up in an affair with another woman, and that other woman is her daughter.
Even Alan acknowledged that his relationship with Soon Yi was a betrayal, but he framed it as a simple affair rather than of a vulnerable young woman who had grown up knowing him as a father figure. His ability to rationalize the relationship revealed a profound disconnect from normal ethical boundaries. The media largely accepted Alan's narrative, focusing on the sensational aspects of the Soon Yi relationship while treating Dylan's allegations as a secondary story. This response would establish a pattern that would persist for decades. Alan's celebrity and cultural influence would consistently overshadow serious allegations of abuse. The formal investigations into Dylan's allegations began in August 1992 and would continue for more than a year. 3 separate entities examined the case: Connecticut State Police, New York State Child Welfare Services, and the Child SA Clinic at Yale New Haven Hospital. Each investigation reached different conclusions, creating a confusing landscape that Alan would exploit for decades. The Connecticut State Police investigation was the most thorough and took the allegations most seriously. Detective supervisors interviewed Dylan multiple times and found her account to be credible and consistent. They also discovered evidence that supported her version of events, including witnesses who had observed Alan's inappropriate behavior toward Dylan on previous occasions. Connecticut State Attorney Frank Mako became convinced that there was probable cause to prosecute Allen on charges of SA. In September 1993, Mako announced that while he had sufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges, he was declining to prosecute in order to spare Dylan the trauma of a public trial. This decision, while well-intentioned, had devastating long-term consequences. By declining to prosecute, Mako inadvertently gave Allen a talking point he would use for the next 30 years. Allen would repeatedly claim that prosecutors had exonerated him, when in fact they had simply chosen not to pursue a case they believed they could win. The Yale New Haven Hospital investigation was far more problematic. The team that examined Dylan was led by Dr. John Leventhal, who interviewed her 9 times over several months. Their final report concluded that Dylan had not been SA'd and suggested that she had been coached by her mother. However, this investigation had serious methodological flaws that would later be exposed. The team destroyed their notes immediately after reaching their conclusion, making it impossible for other experts to review their work. They also refused to testify in court except by deposition, raising questions about their confidence in their findings. Most troubling was Dr. Leventhal's apparent bias in favor of Allen. Court documents later revealed that Leventhal had expressed admiration for Allen's work and seemed predisposed to believe his version of events. When a child psychologist reviewed the Yale New Haven report in 1993, he called it seriously flawed and noted that it's just as easy to conclude from this report that Dylan was
Of course not. No, I mean, Dylan was speaking spontaneously and I grabbed a camera, and it is clear, I mean, the judge has seen that tape, that the child is speaking. There were times when I was even interrupting her. She's speaking.
The videotape Mia had made of Dylan describing the assault, crucial piece of evidence. Legal experts who viewed the tape found it compelling evidence that Dylan was telling the truth. The child's emotional state, her spontaneous corrections of details, and her obvious distress all suggested genuine trauma rather than coaching.
To anybody who sees it, that there's no coaching there. Even Mr. Allen knows that. First of all, he knows Dylan, and you can't coach Dylan into anything. And second of all, it's obvious from the quality of what she's saying, from the urgency.
The New York State Child Welfare Investigation reached a third conclusion, finding no credible evidence of abuse. However, this investigation was primarily administrative rather than criminal, focused on whether Dylan was currently at risk rather than whether a crime had been committed. The custody battle that played out in Manhattan Family Court provided the most comprehensive examination of all the evidence. Acting Justice Elliot Wilk spent months reviewing testimony, expert reports, and evidence from all parties. His final decision was devastating for Allen. While Wilk acknowledged that the evidence regarding the molestation allegations was inconclusive, he found Allen to be self-absorbed, untrustworthy, and insensitive. The judge awarded sole custody to Mia and severely restricted Allen's visitation rights with all 3 children. Most significantly, Wilk criticized the Yale New Haven investigation, noting that the experts who interviewed Dylan had their judgment colored by their loyalty to Mr. Allen. He also blasted Allen's relationship with Soon Yi, writing that Allen had demonstrated no parenting skills that would qualify him as an adequate custodian. Despite this judicial rebuke, Allen continued to claim vindication based on the contradictory investigation results. He would spend the next 3 decades cherry-picking findings that supported his position while ignoring the substantial evidence against him. The system had failed Dylan Farrow in multiple ways. Prosecutors who believed her chose not to pursue charges. Investigators with obvious conflicts of interest questioned her credibility, and the media treated her allegations as secondary to the more sensational Soon Yi scandal. This failure would have consequences that extended far beyond one family, establishing a template for how powerful men in Hollywood could escape accountability for even the most serious allegations. For 2 decades after the allegations, Allen managed to maintain his career through a combination of loyal supporters, strategic legal maneuvering, and Hollywood's willingness to separate art from artist. He continued making films at his typical pace of one per year, working with A-list actors who either believed his denials or chose to ignore the allegations entirely. But the entertainment industry was changing in ways that would eventually make Allen's position untenable. The Me Too movement, launched partly by Dylan's brother Ronan Farrow's reporting on Harvey Weinstein, created a new environment where allegations of SA could no longer be dismissed or ignored.
He's lying, and he's been lying for so long. And it is difficult for me to see him.
In 2014, Dylan Farrow published an open letter in the New York Times, providing graphic details of the alleged for the first time. The letter was a devastating first-person account that was impossible to dismiss as media manipulation or legal maneuvering. He told me to lay on my stomach and play with my brother's train set, Dylan wrote. Then he did me. He talked to me while he did it, whispering that I was a good girl, that this was our secret, that no one must ever know. The letter sparked renewed scrutiny of Allen's past, with many readers encountering the details of the allegations for the first time. Social media amplified Dylan's voice in ways that hadn't been possible in 1992, creating sustained pressure that traditional media gatekeepers could no longer control. Allen's response to the renewed attention revealed how little he had learned from decades of controversy. Rather than expressing empathy for Dylan or acknowledging the pain his actions had caused, he doubled down on his claims of innocence and attacks on Mia's credibility. In 2018, Dylan appeared on television for the first time to discuss the allegations. By this point, the cultural conversation around SA had shifted dramatically. Audiences were more willing to believe survivors and less likely to accept explanations that blamed accusers for their own trauma. Dylan's question highlighted the absurdity of Allen's defense. Why was it more believable that a 7-year-old had been successfully brainwashed than that a powerful man had abused his position? The industry response was swift and decisive. In February 2019, Amazon backed out of a $68 million 4-movie deal with Allen, citing the renewed publicity around Dylan's allegations. For the first time, there were real financial consequences for the continued association with Allen. Actors who had previously worked with Allen began publicly distancing themselves from him. Kate Winslet expressed regret about her collaborations. Timothée Chalamet donated his salary from an Allen film to anti-SA organizations. Colin Firth announced he would no longer work with the director. Allen's memoir, Apropos of Nothing, was initially scheduled for publication by Hachette Book Group in 2020. But after employees staged a walkout protest led by Ronan Farrow, who was also a Hachette author, the publisher canceled the book. It was eventually published by a smaller press to minimal fanfare. The HBO documentary series Allen v. Farrow, which premiered in February 2021, provided the most comprehensive examination of the allegations ever undertaken. The 4-part series included previously unseen home videos and court documents that painted a damning picture of Allen's behavior. By 2021, Allen's career was effectively over. No major studio would finance his films, A-list actors refused to work with him, and distributors avoided his projects. The man who had once been considered one of America's greatest filmmakers found himself reduced to making low-budget productions in Europe, largely ignored by audiences and critics alike. The slow fade of Woody Allen's career represents more than just the fall of one controversial figure. It demonstrates how sustained pressure from survivors, journalists, and activists can eventually overcome even the most sophisticated public relations campaigns and institutional protection systems. Dylan Farrow's courage in continuing to tell her story, despite decades of attacks on her credibility, ultimately prevailed. The 7-year-old girl who had been dismissed and discredited for 30 years finally got the hearing she deserved. And Allen, who had spent decades claiming to be the victim of false allegations, was finally held accountable for his actions. Today, Allen remains married to Soon Yi Privan in relative obscurity, still claiming innocence, but no longer protected by the Hollywood establishment that once shielded him. His disappearance from public life wasn't voluntary. It was the inevitable result of truth finally catching up with power. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.